G'day Cube crew, we've been hard at work planning our approach to the next Murus update. While the previous update focused upon bringing about new gameplay in the form of additional modes, the upcoming 0.7 patch is all about bringing an extra level of polish to the existing game. 0.7, or the Decoration Update as it is more fancily known, is to feature an upgrade to both the level editor's interface and its capability to make more visually refined levels. To achieve this, the visual style of the game's tiles are receiving a facelift, with various different methods planned to achieve this. You'll be hearing from Mr. Art himself later on in the video, but to kick ourselves off, I'll paint the picture of where things are currently at. The Murus level editor is pretty great. Good. Okay. Sufficient. But it can be better. Some of the sussy aspects that we will be addressing are uniform tile sizes. Due to Murus's rush development adhering to the STEM Video Game Challenge deadline, not all tile assets were developed using a consistent sizing format, meaning that the ratio between decorative grass and actual tile hitbox varied across sprites. This complicated the uniform process of snapping the tiles to the grid, as the tile hitboxes are slightly varied. The tiles are now being revamped and re-exported to ensure total consistency. While also on the topic of grid snapping, the grid size will also now accurately follow a set amount of pixels, making sure all elements within the scene are placed and scaled at equal intervals, removing the inconsistencies in pixel sizes that currently exist. Object selection. Currently, only tileable objects have a visual indication for being selected. However, going forward, there will be a uniform indicator for selecting any type of object, including decorations. Right-clicking selected objects will now bring up a little drop-down menu of all the settings associated with that object. This will allow the addition of object layers. Players will now be able to have control over the layering of each of the objects that they place in a level. Currently, Unity just does whatever she feels like, and sometimes it can look a little bodgy. Text editor. The Murus text editor is very rudimentary, and it will be turned into something much more user-friendly. Instead of entering into a text field to then stamp around the map, players will click and drag to create text boxes, and will be able to dynamically enter and edit the text inside. There will also be options for font size present within the new object selection menu. In addition to all these upgrades to existing infrastructure in the editor, a brand new cosmetic feature is to be added: decorations. These are decorative objects that players can place within their levels that hold no bearing on gameplay, but can help bring levels to life and give them an extra layer of schnazz. The decorations will function similar to the baskets on the balloon walls in that they have no white solid outline, unlike the collidable objects. I'll now pass the mic to visual lead Mr. Maxwell to talk about how this art stuff is happening.
Cheers Desh, and hello everyone. I'll be quickly going over the whole decoration stuff that's kicking off with 0.7, what it means for the pre-existing levels and the future levels alike, and what it means for world building down the track. Decorative assets. So these are quite self-explanatory. The decorations will be placed around the levels in an effort to spice them up visually. And since they are placed purely for the sake of vanity, they will have no impact on the gameplay whatsoever. But Maxwell, you might be wondering, how do we know what is decorative and what isn't? Well, we're staying true to the whole white outline equals solid rule that we established beforehand, which basically means that if there's white around it, you can bump into it, you can jump onto it, though if it's a bit hard to read still, fear not. We still have some other ideas prepped to help mitigate any confusion during gameplay sessions. Decals. The decals are similar to decorations, but they're basically markings or other small visuals placed dynamically as a result of the player's actions during a level. We're still expanding and brainstorming with the possibilities here, but we know, for instance, that we will try to use it for impact markings on the tiles. Hopefully these little player-induced signs add a bit more visual source to the levels and help to make them feel a bit more alive. Speaking of decorations and speaking of level source, we're still planning and concepting around the features of dynamic wall texturing and foliage placements. So in the current builds, each wall type has only a single tile, which is sliced up so it can be scaled around, but they all look a little bit too repetitive. So instead of adding bigger tiles with better art, or even multiple tiles to add variation, we're considering having a fairly bare bones tile set, but having an extensive library of details, markings and plants to be scattered across all 4 edges of each tile to make each wall feel a bit more unique. Ledges. One of the most boring parts of Murus visually is the inside of each wall. It's not so bad with smaller islands, but with some of the larger ones, it can be just overwhelming nothingness. So with the introduction of all these decorations, are we going to be able to pimp out the inside of our walls? The answer is yes, of course. Wall ledge designs are planned to be introduced into Murus 0.7, which allows for some interesting visual stuff to go on inside of the big squares of blackness. You can even get creative with the placements and chuck on some decorations on top of the ledges, adding a whole new degree of depth to the levels. Shaders. With my slow but steady exploration into some elements of technical art, more possibilities are opening up for the use of shaders in Murus. For those of you who don't know, shaders are basically just scripted materials which dictate how objects' pixels, vertices, or geometry should behave in certain conditions, using functions and logic and maths and all that other good stuff which kind of gives me a headache, but they can look super cool in the end. So I'll see about adding them in with Murus to help with some tricky effects and such, and just to add some more visual source. I don't know why I keep using the term visual source. It might just be the old word of the day. So what does this mean for the game's levels? Basically, they're now going to look super freaking rad, or at least better than what they do currently. I mean, will 0.7 make everything look magically fantastic? Not really, but we will certainly introduce the framework to improve visuals down the track. Future updates will be expanding the library of decorations, improving the overall quality, and curating them. If one really isn't working out too well, we can just swap it out for a different one, or drop it altogether. And what does that mean for world building? Scattering ruins and remnants of the old world prior to the fracturing of the landscape will certainly help with communicating lore and answering, or even raising, some questions on Murus' backstory. What was the world like beforehand, and how exactly did we get here? We're hoping that these decorations can also breathe life into the current splintered realms of Murus, transforming a level of assorted floating blocks into an environment with canonical purpose.
And that's just about a wrap for this devlog. Now, you may be wondering when you can expect 0.7 to drop, and while we would also love it to be out next week, we're about to be heading into an exam period next month, and it is unlikely we will be able to complete the update before that point, meaning it will probably be a while before we can get 0.7 in your hands. We hope that you understand the delay, and we look forward to sharing the decoration update with y'all. Thank you for watching, and remember to join the Cube crew in the Discord server, link is in the description. Thanks to all our awesome patrons who help keep the lights on. We couldn't keep doing this without you. We'll see you all in the next one. Peace and have a good one.